am on the pause screen. So that was what you were talking about. Okay. So we're going to do the same deal as on process, where we start by callouts and then do the start of a round, which is the rollout and mid-fight. And then we talk about mid-round things, which is going to be everything else. So going from disad last to pushing the other other teams last. Excuse me. So callouts first. We are on last, as you might expect. There's a last point. I see a shutter, I call it a shutter. I see a truck, I call it a truck. I see... Is this a tower? I don't know, I call it a tower. I see a left spawn from the defender's perspective, I call it left. I see a right spawn, I call it right. Of course, those are flipped if you're attacking. This is left. I see a lower door, I call that lower. I see a door on the right side, I call that right. And then you might not know this, but this is called drop down. This little area. So what else? The boxes could sometimes have a trap on them if it's disad, but people don't really use a call out for that box. Really? That's all the callouts on last that I can think of. So let's enter lobby. Now we're in lobby now. There's of course a right and a left, and there's a lower lobby that we're in now. It all connects, and then the way lobby connects into second is, of course, you would expect if you're going last, you can enter lower. You're in lower lobby, and you're leaving lower. So this gets called lower as well. This door up here to enter second is, well, this whole area is called bats. This is still bats as well. There could be like a unique name. I feel like a unique name for that region of bats could be nice, but if there is one, I don't know it. So yeah, bats enters from lobby to mid. Bridge goes from lobby to mid. And then this little connector gets called cheese because if you can see it, there's a little block of cheese in that mouse hole. Okay, so we are now on 2. Or second, or whatever you want to call it. You have the pack. You have logs or a train. You have grass or a yard, depending on what you want to call it. And then this region under here gets called Africa. And this is shed. This little shed. Pretty simple stuff. Now this door, well, both these doors connect to lower, not to be confused with lower lobby. If you're holding evens on mid or on 2, and let's say like my screen just turned off and someone called there's a scout lower or their combo's lower, then I'm gonna know, okay, well their team's on mid, of course they're gonna be lower. If for whatever reason there's a scout lower lobby or that lower, then that probably needs a better call. If someone called that lower on my team in this situation, I'd get mad at them. I'd say like, you should call that behind or lower lobby to differentiate. But anyway, you have lower, which connects to mid and connects to kitchen, which connects to mid. This is kitchen. What else connects to mid? Well, you have saw. This whole area is called saw. I suppose you do have an upper saw, kind of, but this gets called catwalk. So if someone's up here, I'm just calling they're like near cat or something. This is window. So between the call of cat and window, you kind of have this area covered. Yeah, window will connect to to 2. And now we're on mid. You do have like on top of the point, you have top left and top right. Of course, saw enters. This is also a shed. Again, if you're taking a mid fight and someone's calling on shed, you're not going to immediately turn around and be like, oh, I have to shoot the guy on shed. Like, no, it's contextual. So yeah, they're both shed, but you're going to know which one is which. Trust me. Yeah, saw into mid. Anything special? Of course, you have both kitchens and the point. Yeah, the lanes. You have left, middle, and right lane is important because sometimes you aggress across a specific lane during a mid fight. So yeah, can be important. But that's all I can really think of. This might have a name because it's kind of like a hidey spot for soldiers or a place where players will play on a mid fight. But I don't really know the name of it. So it can't be that important, right? That's a joke. I don't know. It could be like Seagull or something. I feel like all spots like that just get called Seagull. But anyway, I think that's it for the callouts. So let's talk about the rollout. And this is a map where you can have multiple rollouts, actually. And not just... So, of course, like the demo and the roamer usually have rollout variety anyway. But the combo has rollout variety. So you're always going to come right spawn to right lobby, and you're always going to roll out through cheese. But once you drop down to saw, you have a decision. Most of the time, the default for most teams is to come right-sided and leave the main saw door, which I didn't mention as a call-out, but I like to call this main saw. And then just take the fight, you know, very central, just kind of chilling, doing your thing. This is a mid. Well, we'll talk about that later. The other option is to enter saw left-sided and then roll out catwalk with your heels. And this is a much more passive positioning you can see. You're definitely giving up more space on point. Your demo won't be here. Your demo is going to be on the floor. But they're going to be more left-sided, giving up more stuff. Just because it's more passive and a little bit safer against bombs. So those are the rollouts. And let's talk mid-fights. So Snakewater is a mid where it's kind of a meat grinder. Like any mid, high ground control is very important, and high ground is very important. Having scouts on high ground denies their soldier bombs and can aggress forward and shoot players. Having soldiers on high ground can shoot down on the floor and hit splash rockets to do damage and kill things. High ground is important, and as a demo, you want to make sure you're shooting high ground if you see anyone go on high ground. And sometimes you don't even need to see high ground. You just need to have a decent idea that someone might be playing there, and it's worth, you know, just shooting a sticky at. So yeah, high ground is very important. And as far as pacing goes, this is a map where you kind of have two options. You can either bomb. Well, basically, you're playing to bomb or you're playing to kill their soldiers. Those are your two plans going into a mid. So, if you're planning to bomb, then, you know, get your initial spam, do whatever you want to do, and then your soldiers should be communicating when they're trying to bomb. It should be like a little early, I suppose, because you don't want to wait too long if you're planning to bomb anyway. And I suppose there's maybe... No, we'll keep going with there's two ways. But yeah, when they bomb, you want to be aggressing and trying to follow up on their bomb. And I mentioned earlier, yeah, you can aggress through different lanes. This is usually something as a demo you're communicating which lane you're in. But yeah, just bomb, walk across, or double bomb, walk forward is like that's a strat that will work on any mid, really. And Snakewater is not an exception there. Now, the other option is playing to kill their soldiers, where you aren't really planning to bomb. You're just kind of waiting around. If they bomb in, you're going to maybe prioritize killing their guys and then winning off the picks. Now, where this does vary a little bit is if they bomb, your soldiers don't have to bomb their soldiers to clean them up faster. Your soldiers can bomb the players on point or just counter bomb. So even though you weren't expecting to bomb or weren't playing for a bomb, your soldiers might end up bombing them anyway. And you might end up bombing if you have a sufficient opportunity. So if neither team is really doing too much, let's say they're just waiting it out as well. But let's say like your demo was like laying a carpet and then they det and then hit their demo for like 140. That's probably something you want to bomb off of. And on the fly, you can get ready to aggress forward with a bomb. So yeah, your plan can change depending on an opportunity, and it's just important that players are going to be playing positions where they can be available. So as far as a mid-fight goes with the normal rollout, scout on shed is quite nice, and like top right can be a nice spot for a scout or a soldier. Usually pocket is going to be right-sided, whereas the roamer and flank scout are going to be more so left-sided, top left, where they can like peek around and then like drop down to bomb or something. Soldiers have a lot of options. They can roll out your own kitchen. They can roll out fast into the other team's kitchen to go behind. A lot of options there. As far as the other rollout, if you're rolling out catwalk, it's usually because you're just getting destroyed by their bombs and you want to stop that. So what this does is it's way, way, way safer against bombing enemies. And if they bomb into this, then you're likely going to get picks and win the mid. But it's weaker against aggression on point. So a lot of the time, if you're playing a catwalk, you're usually playing it to wait out that initial bomb window. And then if they don't bomb, then you drop down and play a normal mid. Or if they aggress forward on point without bombing, then you might want to bomb them and aggress into them when they're kind of forward and a little more vulnerable. So those are like the basic options for a mid-fight. And yeah, let's get back to last and do our thing here. So, just add last. Typically, as a combo, you want to be playing on top of point, which just gives you the option of kiting wherever you want to kite. So if you see them approaching right side, then you get to kite back left. If you see them pop through shutter, then you get to kite right into spawn. And you're usually kiting into spawn, by the way. If they come lower, you could pick either side, but I would say whatever side your sentry gun is not on, which is usually right side, is going to be better. Okay, that's your combo. Of course, soldiers and doors is nice. Soldier drop down is going to get nice spam on them if they take left lobby. And then a soldier right-sided, maybe on tower, maybe on the fence actually. But just some nice high ground. He's going to hold these doors nicely. And then your other scout that's not with the combo is going to be on engineer, which is usually going to be your flank scout. And the nice gun kind of alluded to it. Usually the disad gun is going to be left-sided in front of left spawn. But if you do have a lot of time to move your gun, there are some very nice disad guns actually. This is only when you've already built the gun and you know for a fact you have time to move it, because you don't want to be caught with your pants down in like a bad position on engineer, dying on engineer. That would be terrible. But let's say they used their Uber on 2 and killed your medic with it. But you have all your spawners on last, your med spawned, so you know they don't have Uber yet, and you know they can't push until they have that Uber. So that's definitely a time where you have plenty of time to move your gun somewhere. And some spots people will put it behind the blue crate. some even like here, just some weird spot. And one that I very much like against, if it's against a team that likes using through shutter or lower, which is like the good doors to use through, but a lot of teams will come through top right anyway, even though it's not so good. But if the teams are mostly using left-sided, then a gun behind this rock is actually very nice. I've noticed that recently in invite games. So those are the options for your sentry gun. Most of the time it's just going to be in front of spawn though. Okay, and then normal stuff. Picking what side you want to leave spawn is quite important. And basically the rule of thumb is what side is their Uber on, their Uber ending on, you want to come out the other side. So if you leave right spawn and you have a spot, it's important to spot this probably as like a scout or something, someone who's fast. If you spot that they're still on left side because you can see through the spawn shutter, then yeah, you want to probably come out right side. But if they tried to cross into you and you see there's no one here, then yeah, by all means come out left side. Oftentimes left-sided posts, they tend to feel better for me for some reason. Maybe it's just the fact that you can shoot into point through this makes it feel better as a demo, but I don't know. But yeah, you have to play the hand you're given, and you have to play whatever side their Uber is not ending on. Okay. Now let's talk evens on last, and let's talk sacks. So this is a last where there's really just one evens gun spot, and it's just the best one by far, and it's something around like here, I'd say. There is like a specific spot that it's best in, but like what you can notice here is the gun watches lower, the gun watches drop down, and the gun watches some of top right. And if they commit further in past shutter, it watches shutter. But more importantly, it can't get spammed from shutter because of this this sheet metal. So it kind of watches all the doors. So it's kind of impossible to sack into. And then your demo is going to be holding top right, having traps on the doorway in case they want to speed shot through or something, being able to like peek it if they want. But if they get pressured, they can just duck back around the corner. Dropping down there is like fine, you would live, but you can back up into this corner and they can't chase you without meeting the gun, so you're safe. You can kite back around this corner. Your medic is gonna be around this corner, usually with a dispenser to help out your demo with ammo, because ammo is hard to come by sometimes on last holds. But yeah, medic here. And then you want usually a roamer drop down, just making sure they're watching left lobby, not letting anything through these doors. And then pocket lower, where they can get healed by your med and just deny any attempts to spam down the gun, because the primary way of spamming down the gun is peeking your soldiers lower at the same time and just sinking rockets into it, which is more than the NG can tank it through if it's sustained long enough. So yeah, pockets lower to deny that. Demo top right, roamer top left. One vulnerability of this hold is a sniper peek shutter. If for whatever, or just sniper peeks right side in general, if for whatever reason your roamer gets spammed out and no one rotates in time, then a sniper could peek this and get a shot off, or have a shot charge staring at this and have someone else peek the shutter for them and get a shot on your med. So yeah, rotating doors is important. When a soldier gets spammed out, it's important to rotate to catch up that slack. But yeah, that's what the evens hold looks like for a sack. As far as counter sacking goes, there's not a lot of good options. The pressure, like you can take lobby a little bit, but not often you're even going to be able to like get past this line if their demo is playing it properly. This is assuming that the other team sacked 2, because double sacks are pretty standard into this last. So if their demo is just playing that adequately, you're not likely to be able to cross it. and you're not likely to be able to get much pressure, honestly. So some options are like fast sacking, having a soldier maybe like try and catch them lower lobby on a rotation or something could be good. But outside of that, like get whatever pressure you can, but just know the pressure is not going to be that great. You kind of just have to grin and bear it and just send your counter. Okay, let's talk about pushing out of last. This is a really, really annoying last to push out of. I mean, all lasts are annoying, but Snakewater is annoying as well. First, I want to talk about clearing things, because this is a very back-cappable last. Of course, drop down and this area under drop down need to get checked. Lower needs to get checked, as well as the hiding spot on barrels, as well as the hiding spot above here that players can sneak in. As well as even like under the stairs, I guess. This should be a lot easier to see, but you never know. These are all spots that need to get checked. Likewise, this is probably just gonna get checked naturally, but may as well look. Cheese as well is a big deal, because a soldier could just be chilling cheese as your combo pushes forward, and then they just walk past your combo and go to last. So yeah, it needs to be pushing out needs. You need like a good tempo, because if you take too long, you're just kind of gonna get back capped. Because there's going to be a window of opportunity where something's not going to be watched long enough for someone to get through. So, your options as far as doors go. If you're trying to dry and get through without using, then it's usually going to be bridge or bats. So, your pocket is pretty much going to bomb through whatever door you're not getting through, I think, to identify if there's traps. Identify or spam out whoever's trying to hold it close so that they have to jump away, because there's usually going to be a soldier holding close on fence. Yeah, make sure there's no traps, and then your scout can get through, and then your demo can get through, and then you can start taking your dry. You can do this through either door. I'd say bats is more common, even though it's a more narrow door, just because you get nice positioning here, and this is a spot where your combo likes holding anyway, which we'll talk about later. As far as popping through goes, totally fine out of this last. Could be bridge or bats. Either one works. Bridge is just kind of closer, so I just tend to prefer bombing through this door. And yeah, it's just normal flip-flop stuff. You're just trying to catch any picks you can. But yeah, you're just trying to get that space, get that point, and then kind of leave it to them to make a mistake and see if they can dry into two successfully or use back in. And yeah, I don't know, flip-flop meta. But yeah, the basic options are dry. Oh, that decal fades in and out. Who knew? You can dry through bridge or bats or pop through bridge or bats. Those are kind of your main options. Okay. Now that we're off of last, let's talk about disad on 2. And you're generally going to be playing to leave bats as a combo, because it's just nice high ground. You get to see everything. You can get acceptable spam in, I suppose. Not great because they're so far away, but you never know. And yeah, if they're coming saw, you just have to make sure you're not caught to like a fast Uber chase up bridge into lobby. So you might have to leave a little bit sooner. But yeah, you're just playing to leave. Soldiers have some decent spots that they can be chilling at to bomb from. Yeah, just normal disad stuff. You probably want to send a sack, assuming everyone's alive as they enter, just so they don't get it for absolutely free. And yeah. Okay. Now let's talk about evens on second, and we'll start with sack procedure. So generally, your medic is going to be like in this region, ready to help out whoever, but oftentimes behind train is better than in front of it. Less spam, and yeah, if your demo is like rotating over to saw, you might want to rotate with them, or just rotate left side if they're basically like this general area is where your medic is at. Combo Scout can be on train, just some nice little high ground, or on fence, which is very nice high ground, and they can just double jump out, do whatever, just demolish any soldiers that are trying to bomb. Flank Scout as well is probably better off on fence. Now, what about soldiers? So if it's a sack, you're expecting everyone on your team to be alive. Soldier on the pipe here to help spam out saw, or even in cheese can be nice. What about the other soldier? Other soldier, I guess, just available to help out wherever, just high ground wherever. Yeah. Okay, and then demo is usually best kind of in front of train here, where they can spam out lower and easily rotate over if they pressure saw. The advantage of this is you're just in between the spots, so you can help out wherever. And if they start pressuring lower, you might want to rotate to a more normal position where you can start getting healed and take this fight more normally. But yeah, that's the demo position. And that's for when they're sacking. So, let's say they sacked their guy. It's usually going to be a single soldier sack. You can counter sack. And you have some options. First option, of course, bring your combo into saw to pressure saw. And the other option is bring your combo into lower to pressure lower. And then just sack your soldier. They can go kitchen, they can go through saw, they can really go wherever they'd like for their counter sack. It's gonna be up to them. Alright, so that's counter sack. Now let's talk about pushing into mid. So you have a lot of options actually. If you want to dry, you can, well, let's start by, if you're coming saw, if you want to come saw, then main is a decent door to pop through. You can catch some players potentially, or just flip-flop the point. It's a totally acceptable door to be bombing through. Catwalk is a decent dry door, just because it gives you some nice high ground, and it's kind of far away from where they're holding, so harder to spam. Of course, you have to watch out for bombing soldiers and traps, of course, as with any dry push. But, yeah. Catwalk is a decent dry door. Main is a decent bombing door. If you're coming lower, straight lower is also a decent drying door. You'll notice it's basically right next to Cat, but it's a bit lower down. So for that reason, Cat is oftentimes preferred. And then kitchen actually is a decent bombing door as well, where you might be able to catch some players out or flip-flop. Of course, kitchen, you have to watch out for traps as well, of which there's some decent ones. Okay. So that's pushing into mid. And yeah, every door is viable in one way or another. So now that you have mid, let's talk about disad on mid. So you'll notice when I bombed through saw, I bombed towards kitchen, but when I bombed from kitchen, I bombed towards saw. The fact that those are flipped doors is just now dawning on me, so it sounds confusing. But when I demonstrated bombing through this door, I kind of bombed to like the right side and looked towards kitchen, whereas when I was bombing from here, I bombed towards saw. And why is that? Well, either of these doors could be doors that their combo is holding or playing to leave in. It's unlikely that... Whatever, that's too complicated. But what I'm getting at is, on disad mid, you have the option to leave saw. You also have the option to leave kitchen. Kitchen gives you closer spam to saw and lower. But again, it's a bit of an awkward rotation out, whereas saw is a much more natural place for your combo to be leaving. So you can think of it as kind of like an IT versus choke scenario, where playing to leave kitchen is kind of like playing to leave IT on process, whereas playing to leave saw is closer to playing to leave choke, where one is one is closer and offers some better spam, but has a bit of an awkward rotation out, and the other has generally worse spam, but is a pretty fluid way to leave. Yeah, and then of course having soldiers on the height as per usual, just holding close those doors so that they actually have to use through if they're trying to walk through the door, is important. Now, let's talk about evens on mid. And now that we have mid, we're officially the attacking team, which means the closest thing to dis-ad is actually counter-sack, not sack. So counter-sack on mid, you're expecting to usually be down a soldier. So pocket scout on the height is going to be nice. Medic just in the, the region, ready to heal people. Demo has the advantage of being able to hold kind of like 2 layers of traps, because they can hold a trap saw, and there's multiple ways to trap this off. Even like, wow, that's maybe less so. You want to be holding the doorway. And then if they enter saw to pressure, then you can just give that up, and now you have a new door to hold. Look at that. And suddenly, like, you have wasted so much of their time by doing that, and now your soldier is that much closer to respawning. So yeah, demo's going to be holding saw. Once they have to give up the actual like saw door into 2, cat is going to be something that you need to watch. So having a pocket soldier or whatever soldier is alive on this height is probably pretty useful, just to spam out lower and spam out catwalk. They could run a guy behind kitchen, but shouldn't be too much of a problem, especially with like your flank scout around to help. They can be chilling on whatever height they need to. Just make sure that's not like an effective sack. Yeah, pretty straightforward counter sack procedure. So let's talk about pressuring for a sack. You have some options here. Mainly whether you want to go saw or whether you want to go lower. A lot of the time it's going to kind of depend on what your roamer wants to do, where they want to bomb from, and have you pressure the other way. But it could be something that you call as well. So pressuring saw, you give you some decent pressure. You can spam the guy on pipe or in cheese or whatever. And from here, actually, you could bomb a soldier through cheese behind, and then either rotate doors or continue pressuring from here and have them pinch from behind while they're distracted. Similar to like an IT pressure, I suppose. Only in the sense that you're getting that guy behind. I wouldn't say saw functions like IT in that regard. But yeah, it's decent spam if you can peek out far. It depends on how much their demo pressures you. If he does meet, then you're not going to be getting too much. And then you can pressure lower. Now lower is quite far away, and you can like get through the door usually pretty cleanly and start to take a fight in yard if you want. Of course, you don't want to overcommit because you are kind of playing for your sack, so it's really just about getting spam and not losing guys. So spamming scouts off the fence, they can't deny your soldier, getting damage on the med. All those good things are important. But what's very important is that you get out safely and alive once you send your guy. Because if you lose like a demo or multiple important classes out there during that pressure, then instead of that comfy counter sack I just described, suddenly you might just be losing the point, which you don't want. Okay, so that's pressure for your sack. Let's talk about pushing into 2. So, and as well, like if you're pressuring lower, it's important that someone's watching saw. Usually your flank. I mean, this is just normal flank combo dynamics, but whichever door your combo is going to, your flank wants to make sure that the other area is being watched. Okay, as far as pushing into second goes, saw is a decent door if you're planning to pop through, and you can try and catch them bats, or you can try to pop through and like chase them up bridge, maybe try and cut them off lobby. If you're planning to pop through, it's probably going to be through saw. The reason being, lower is just so far away that you can already be like much closer to them just by coming saw. You can dry through Saw as well. Totally. Of course, you have to watch out for solar cheese. Just watch out for the normal stuff like traps. But yeah, totally fine. Places where you might want to dry Saw is if, for instance, you didn't deny a forward spawn and you think they might have a sniper in there and you just want to go Saw to be safe to avoid that. That's totally an option. But yeah, Saw you can totally dry through. Lower is kind of a textbook dry door, just because, I mean, I already described how you can kind of take some space even just pressuring for a sack. It's just so far away. It's so wide open as well. You can just see any soldier coming from so far away. Yeah, it's generally a very approachable dry. So yeah, lower is great for that. If you want to dry into 2. The dry into 2 is actually like it's pretty straightforward, honestly. Pretty easy on Snakewater. Okay, now let's talk about disadd on 2. Generally, you're going to want to play your combo leaving lower. Pocket Scout might even be able to be all the way up on Shed, but you want to make sure your med's not caught to a bomb out bridge or bats or something, and just ready to leave lower. Of course, I mentioned the Batcat potential is very good into last. Having a soldier cheese can be nice. Having a soldier on pipe could also be nice. That soldier on fence is quite important, just to spam them out. And then just whatever rat stuff you want to do, you could maybe do try and shove flank if they're down a guy, or just if you're feeling it. Yeah, there's opportunities. Yeah, that's disadd on 2. As far as counter sack on 2 goes, basically you're expecting it to have been a double sack, right? You double sacked into their last, so you're down 2. Usually having combo scout on height is important if you can. So I wouldn't recommend rotating your beam here if they have a sniper top left, because he's just going to die. But you do want your demo on bridge, and if you can rotate your beam over, which I suppose could happen behind train actually, it's nice to have your beam with your demo here so that you could just take an exchange if they pressure too hard. Your pocket should be totally fine just holding bats or bombing whatever guys they need to. Lower isn't being directly watched, but with a scout on height, whether it be train or wherever, this guy shouldn't be able to do much with his bomb, because you just chip him for 60, it just falls to the floor. Yeah, that's the counter sack hold. Now let's talk about sacking. So when it comes to pressuring for a sack, I recommend pretty much always pretty much always when you enter lobby, it's just safest to do it lower lobby. Of course, this is a doorway that's pretty commonly trapped, but once you get past that, then like you're good. The reason I don't say to take lobby through bats is because this is just a sniper sight line, as well as like a spam lane. I use lock and load, not all demos do, but anytime a team tries to enter or leave through bats, like I'm guaranteed to hit 1 or 2 pipes, and a lot of the time that's just a med drop as well. So just entering lower lobby is just safest, even though it can be commonly trapped. That being said, as a demo, oftentimes you are going to be holding top left and not entering lower lobby with your combo. You'd be entering like through bridge just because you're only playing over here. Once your combo has lobby control, you can do all sorts of things. So you can tank your soldiers to coordinate spam on the gun, like I mentioned. You can pressure shutter, and you could rotate your demo over for this shutter pressure if you'd like as well. That is an option. And from here, yeah, like the gun doesn't see you. You can't really spam down the gun so great. Maybe you could like sticky it or something, but generally you're just looking for some pressure, some spam. Yeah, that's like shutter pressure. Or you could just like rip a sack top left, maybe try and get on the demo. A lot of teams will actually hold their medic like back here, in which case that like double sack through top left is actually quite effective, especially like peeking your demo. You might be able to get some spam off. Yeah, those are all options, but it all begins with taking lobby, and this is going to be through lower lobby. Okay. So, hello Paulo, how are you doing? So that was sacking. So last thing to talk about is pushing into last. So similar to 1 on process, let's say, well, similar to 1 on process, if you're going off a fast transition and just want to get in as fast as possible because you're operating off of a lot of their players being dead and you want to get in as soon as possible so that you can take that fight for as long as possible before those guys spawn, if that makes sense, top left is the way to go. You have to watch out for this sniper sightline, but it's just a matter of getting your scout through and identifying that before any important classes peak. So, yeah, top left is very fast to get in, which can be quite nice. When you have a lot of picks, you can get in through shutter as well. A lot of time this will happen if like you're rotating doors, for instance, after like maybe an exchange top left. But that's like your fast option, and lower as well. If you're not trying to just take space, but trying to use through fast, maybe while it's still add and it's like slimming, then straight lower, and then your demo identifying which side their combo's on and calling on the fly which side to bomb to is useful. So yeah, lower is good for that purpose. And for all other purposes, for a more methodical push, where you kind of want to spot, give players buffs, you have some, well, as always, you have options. So, of course, entering through lower, you have to watch out for a sniper sightline as well on this cross. This is not so bad as the one top left, but still something to keep in mind. They could just hit their shot. The bread and butter is going to be through shutter as well. I don't know if I've mentioned this on other map reviews, but the way you generally take an open door Uber is demo in first, bombing in, and then pocket scout following, because pocket scout in first means the soldier holding the door shoots a rocket, which means your demo's sticky gets juggled and they can no longer jump. But when it's a shutter, you usually do pocket scout in first. Your demo throws a stick on the shutter so that when your scout peeks it, they det the stick. So if there's any traps here that were going to knock your scout all the way back and slow down the Uber, those get knocked away and your scout gets in through clean, and then demo follows. That's just kind of a rule of thumb for taking Ubers through like an open doorway versus shutter. But anyway, shutter is kind of your bread and butter for a pop through, because the gun is oftentimes going to be on this side, and this is definitely a last where you're oftentimes able to cross. But of course, just keep in mind, you know, how much time that Uber's taking, and make that decision to cross or end on right side. And then even when it's slow, you totally can just pop through lower if you'd like. It gives you some options to maybe like get in left side. And left is definitely a door you can dry through if you'd like. Of course, you have to watch out for that sniper. Watch out for whatever things. But yeah, if you're coming top left, you're usually doing it with intention to take some space and maybe pop in when you're already deep and can collapse on some vulnerable players. But usually the dry top left only happens when you like have a pick or something. Because against like a soldier actually holding this close, they're just gonna like hit a player for 200 and like get the force anyway, and probably still jump away. So you're against a full team that's like already set up. You're oftentimes gonna get forced anyway. Anything I'm missing on that note? I can quick rehash basic Uber principles. Even though I did talk about it process, which is this is the same stream as, so that this is a more clear like standalone video, I'll mention it. Basically, there's like an Uber flow chart of sorts. First thing you're doing is if there's players that are caught, you definitely want to catch them. If there's, any player caught too far forward in the shutter, focus that first. So let's say you catch the player or the player gets out. In either case, you move on to step 2, which is focus down any sentry gun there might be. Let's say it's hiding around the corner. Then you want to focus that down. Step 3 is when you're hit with a decision. This is where you either end the Uber on the side that you used in on, or you cross and end on the opposite side. So what influences this decision is really just how long the Uber takes. If you have enough Uber to comfortably cross and end on the opposite side, then usually that's the preferable option. But that's not always going to be the case, and sometimes you're just going to have to end on the side you used in on, which is, again, totally fine. Like, you got your positioning with the Uber. You want to hold on to that. Now, next step is you want to... This is more applicable to so let's say step 4 is only applicable, actually, if you end on the same side you used in on. And step 4 is you take some time to reload and reheal. So after we use in, after I try and get the pick, or if there isn't a pick, then I immediately focus down the gun. If we're calling to end on this side, then I take some time to chill out. As a demo, I probably have shutter at least a little bit locked out. And then I reheal, reload, and get ready for a collapse, and that's step 5. So if you cross, you pretty much like immediately skip to step 5. That is the step 5 of a sense. But the step 5 is you recollapse with your flank. Your flank getting in, everyone else crossing into them, just trying to kind of nuke them. Of course, if you do cross with the Uber, then you might take some time to like reload and reheal on this side before taking another collapse or something. But yeah, that's the basic approach to Ubers and to last. You can pepper in cap time whenever, really. You can do that very early on if you'd like, or only during the commit or whatever. Snakewater is a very good last to pressure cap on. You have to watch out about like sneaky traps, of course, that might, I suppose more like that is more hidden. You have to watch out about like sneaky traps that are trying to kill the scout on point, but especially if their demo doesn't trap point, yeah, no reason not to just get a ton of cap time while they're kiting. And you oftentimes on Snakewater will just be able to get the cap straight up during that kite. So early cap pressure is quite nice if as long as you're conscious about traps on point. Yeah, that's Snakewater. Trying to think. I don't know if I have much else to say about pushing into last with ad. So with that, I'll probably cut it out. And yeah, make this a video. Probably some more map reviews coming in the future. I will eventually like to close them all out, so I can just have that as a reference for anyone who needs it. Yeah, for now we knocked out Process and Snakewater. Okay. You are sick. That is very unfortunate.